Hi everyone, my name is Jessica Cattleman. I want to first start by saying I am so uncomfortable in front of a camera and recording myself, so bear with me. Today we'll be talking about Lev Vygotsky's research on social interaction. I will define social interaction and describe the fundamental principles and pose a few questions on how his research is relevant to you in your classroom. First, I will give you a little background on Lev Vygotsky. He was born in Russia in 1896 and died in 1934 at age 31. He was a Soviet psychologist and focused his work in developmental psychology. During his lifetime, Vygotsky's theories were controversial within the Soviet Union. His theories oppose Jean Piaget's cognitive development process because Piaget explains that a person undergoes development first before he achieves learning, whereas Vygotsky argues that social learning comes first before development. Although his ideas were introduced to the West in the 1930s, they remained relatively unknown until the 1970s when they became a central component in developmental and educational psychology. Today, they are widely known. In fact, we use one of his theories today, the zone of proximal development. Vygotski's social developmental theory includes three major components: the role of social interaction in cognitive development, the more knowledgeable other, and the zone of proximal development. To Vygotsky, social interaction plays a fundamental role in the development of cognition. He believed that we learn through our interactions and communications with others. Language is the main tool that promotes thinking, develops reasoning, and supports cultural activities like reading and writing. There is a connection between speech, both silent inner speech and oral language, and the development of mental concepts. Think of these things as tools of the mind. For example, babies. They're born with the basic materials and abilities for intellectual development. Their learning is largely controlled by their environment. Babies are attracted to the brightest and loudest things in their environment and can remember something only after it has been repeated many times, which, as parents, I'm sure we find very frustrating. I can remember taking my daughter to Mommy and Me class when she was an infant. We would sing songs, play games, play with musical instruments, shake rattles, and interact with the other parents and children. During this time, I would watch my daughter. She was so observant. She would watch the babies. She'd take it all in, and you could just see her trying to think about what the other children were doing and how they were doing it. So, for example, when a baby that was a little bit older could move an object from one hand to the other, she would watch them, and then a while later, after many times of trying to repeat the action, she was eventually able to move one object from one hand to the other. Her learning was based on her environment. So a lot of our learning and memorization is based on cultural standards. If your culture mainly is relevant to note-taking or the use of reading materials to learn things versus an oral language, versus an oral history, a student is more likely to turn to books to do research or to learn. This is the example of Vygotsky's theory that child development is a result of interactions between children and their social environment. Vygotsky believes that young children are curious and actively involved in their own learning. He placed more emphasis on social contributions to the process of development. Much important learning occurs through social interaction with a skillful tutor. It could be a parent, it could be a teacher, it could be an older peer or a more knowledgeable peer. We learn that way. We have a discussion with peers or with our friends. We talk to them for the sake of communication. After we interact with them, we internalize what was discussed and construct new meaning and understanding. This is known as the more significant other. Vygotsky believed that learning occurs through social interaction with a skillful tutor. The tutor may model behaviors or provide verbal instructions. The child seeks to understand, then internalizes the information and uses it as a guide to regulate their own performance. I can remember one time when I was teaching first grade, and in the morning before school began, I would set out different activities for the students to complete before the bell rang. One day I sent out jigsaw puzzles. I remember watching my students try to put the jigsaw puzzles together, and I was amazed at how many of my students had never seen puzzles before. I was working in a Title I high poverty school where a lot of students had older siblings or younger siblings and didn't have many materials at home. They moved often, so they didn't have many belongings. But I was amazed to see that even in first grade, the students couldn't manipulate the puzzles to put them together correctly. So that week I kept setting out the puzzles. I would watch the students when they first tried to solve the puzzle. They would just randomly select a piece at a time. They would just put them together to see if they would fit. They wouldn't pay attention to the picture, they wouldn't pay attention to the edges. Then, while walking around, I would coach a group of students. I would coach a student. I would give them a few pieces that match to put together. I would show them how to put together the edges and the corners to build the frame. I would show them how to sort their pieces by color to put the picture together. Some basic strategies to solve a puzzle. I would offer encouragement as the students completed the puzzle. As the students became more confident and were able to solve the puzzle independently, the less I would provide assistance to them. I would just encourage them. I could see the students using the strategies shown to them as a guide to complete the puzzle independently. Now, the concept of the more knowledgeable other is related to the theory of the zone of proximal development. Since my students were 6 and 7 and had never seen a jigsaw puzzle, I didn't set out 100-piece puzzles or 500-piece puzzles. I set out 24 pieces. Just a small, simple puzzle with characters related to their interests. This theory of zone of proximal development we should all be familiar with. It's defined as the distance between the actual developmental level, as determined by independent problem solving, and the level of potential development as determined through problem solving under adult guidance or more capable peers. Basically, it is the range between what a student can achieve independently, what a student can achieve with guidance and encouragement from a skilled partner, and what a student doesn't know. Vygotsky sees the zone of proximal development as the area where the most sensitive instruction or guidance should be given, allowing the child to develop skills they will then use on their own to complete tasks. There was a study done in 1990. It was Lisa Freund, I think, and the students had to decide which items of furniture should be placed in particular areas of a dollhouse. Some children were allowed to play with their mother in a similar situation before they attempted it alone, while others were just chosen to work independently by themselves first. The study found that those who had previously worked with their mother showed the greatest improvement compared with their first attempt at the task. The conclusion being that guided learning within the zone of proximal development led to a greater understanding and performance than working alone. I can see this in our schools today. We don't try to teach multiplication to students before they can add. Now, in a classroom, Vygotsky's theories have many practical applications. One is the method of reciprocal teaching, which is used to help improve students' ability to learn from text. In this method, the teacher and students collaborate in learning and practicing 4 key skills: summarizing, questioning, clarifying, and predicting. The teacher's role in the process is reduced over time. Also, Vygotsky is relevant to instructional concepts such as scaffolding, in which a teacher or more advanced peer helps to structure or arrange a task so that a student can work on it successfully. Vygotsky's theories also feed into current theories of collaborative learning, suggesting that group members should have different levels of ability so more advanced peers can help less advanced members operate within their zone of proximal development. Now, I hope I've helped you understand Vygotsky's theories and the role social interaction plays in development. I want you to think about how you use the zone of proximal development in your classroom. How does the zone of proximal development relate to differentiated instruction? What teaching methods support this theory of learning? And how do you determine the appropriate support level for your students? Thank you very much.